Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Konrad. This is an extra episode for your YouTube comments because Anthony James and Konrad could not stop rambling on. What a pair of schmucks. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Hello and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James and this is...
Konrad.
That's him.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, he's back again.
We did a slightly different intro that time, and it's thrown me.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'll have to listen back. I can't even remember what our intro is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But okay, so he hasn't run away yet. He still wants to watch Dark. He's still got crazy theories. This episode obviously is going to be about your comments, in which you've sent a lot of them this week. So we have 13 questions to ask him, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. If it does become more than this, we were talking about it, it's already at the point where this is going to be quite a long extra episode. If I start getting 20, I'm probably going to have to start picking and choosing. So make sure your questions are really good, is what I'll say.
Yeah, don't hit us with those weak questions. Give us that good stuff.
Yeah, and you know what I'm like? I like to respond to in the comments and I like to get in discussions and stuff. So it is with a huge, heavy heart that I would cut people's comments and cut people's questions. But unfortunately, you know, we both have lives. You know, I've got a family. I don't really want to be sitting up until 1 a.m. answering all these questions. Having said that, I can't promise anything. Okay, so follow us on audio apps if you haven't already. Subscribe if you want to listen to us that way. And yeah, let's get going.
A stranger from the outside.
So,
Yeah, let's go.
question 1. It comes from Alex, and Alex has sent in a question a couple of times, so he's a regular listener. Hello, Alex. And he says, now that episode 5 has revealed the Michael twist, what's Konrad's prediction for the season finale? So the season 1 finale, I would imagine.
Season 1. I think that Mikkel and Jonas are going to... Well, Mikkel has already met him, but I think Mikkel and Jonas are going to like rumble Noah's operation. So they're going to travel through time again.
Oh, so you think... So in a way, in inverted commas, Jonas will sort of stop his dad from growing up, sort of thing, into being Michael?
No, I think Mikkel will still ultimately live in the 80s and become Michael.
Okay.
But I think those two are going to kind of go off and have like adventures while Hannah's not paying attention. And they're going to revolve around them actually learning who Noah is and what he's about. So I think at least my expectation for the end of this season is that at least, let's say, 2 of the characters actually know what Noah is doing by the time we hit the finale. Okay.
And you think it's going to be like, in terms of Mikkel and Jonas, it's going to be like sort of a Rick and Morty thing where Jonas is going to show up at the school and goes, Mikkel, we got to go, you know, and they...
Exactly. Screw this German lesson where you're talking about Faust. Let's hit the road.
Yeah, let's hit the road. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Next one comes from Aries. I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry. Does Konrad already know the Ariadne play? And what does he think in connection to the dark theories about the Ariadne story? Now, we've already touched on this, so we can just sort of gloss over it. Is it just a random play that Marta's part of, or does it have importance to the overall series?
Well, I don't know the play. I know the sort of roughly the story of like Perseus and the Minotaur. I've never actually seen that play or read that play, but this is kind of what I was getting into in the main episode, where the amount of dialogue they've given Marta in the last 2 episodes from this play, it feels so like these last few episodes feel so overburdened with symbolism in her dialogue that I'd be really surprised if they're just using her as like a vessel to deliver metaphor. So I think there is going to be some significance to it. I think obviously this idea of like this red cord leading people through the labyrinth is a very obvious visual metaphor, but there is all this stuff about, you know, like breaking away from your parents and your like kind of disavowing yourself from your brother in favor of the bonds that you form with others. And yeah, I've already said in the episode that I think Marta's origins are going to be different than what they're initially implied to be, based on how explicit it felt in this scene. That might be completely wrong, but it feels so explicit that I'd be surprised if it just turned out that she was just Ulrich and Katarina's child.
Okay, cool. Let me think here. Was there something else? Oh yeah, I just wanted to say about the play. Now, I don't know about you, Konrad, but in my school, our school play was Annie, and it was a lot less dreary and dark than this one. This is just very monologue heavy. I was telling my wife this the other day. I was like, geez, like our school play had like a teacher dress up as a woman with balloons for boobs. You know, this is way more serious than we did, you know.
I think it depends how old they are, though. Like, because this feels like a college play to me.
It does.
Like it has that hallmark of like the really awkward sort of semi-nudity of a 17-year-old in a college play, where like the director wants them to do quote unquote proper drama, but it just makes everyone really uncomfortable. So yeah, but I think my plays were like A Christmas Carol and things like that.
Yeah, of course, around Christmas time. But then my wife burst the bubble of the fun I was having remembering my school play and just said, it's probably just like a drama exam. You know, they have to do it for their coursework or whatever. I was like, okay, you're probably right.
Yeah, so it's all the drama students getting together to do some serious stuff.
Some serious acting, because they're such deep souls.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question from Adam McCready says, now that season 1 is taking shape, what are Konrad's theories? Now this could go anywhere, like, you know, what are Konrad's theories about where series 2 and 3 are going to go?
So I have one theory that is informed largely by the fact that it's informed pretty much entirely by the absence of a character rather than anything they've done.
So Claudia, you're talking about?
Yeah, so I think Claudia is going to be important just because it feels quite poignant that no one's mentioning her. Yeah. And I think she's going to be a character who time travels.
Okay.
Based on the fact that, again, no one is mentioning her, which to me maybe means she already has time traveled. I don't know, but and I think I think in future seasons we'll see other timelines. So I still think characters like Jonas and possibly Claudia are going to be important to the sort of time travel at the center of Dark. But I think they're going to be, you know, operating in different timelines and seeing different stuff. But it's so hard to call where it's going to go from here because, you know, is it going to maintain the sort of character drama at the center of this show through three seasons, and is it going to be a case of, you know, there's a handful of characters who have no idea about all the time travel stuff that's going on, and it's just kind of it's just analyzing their familial relationships, or is it going to put that aside and go crazy? I really don't know. I hope it doesn't, because I like the character drama, but it could go so many different ways. It really could.
Yeah, it's true, and you could almost get bogged down in the idea that everyone has to be involved in all of this crazy stuff, and it sort of, if you do that, like that's fun, you know, too, also trying to theorize about what everyone's doing, but at the same time, if you don't just stop and smell the roses as you go, you'll miss the character work that's being done with certain characters that maybe aren't going to be involved. So
I'm interested to see if Jonas ever comes back to his correct timeline. I mean, I guess if my theory about him being the stranger is correct, he does kind of come back, but I mean, like, sort of properly return to his timeline. But I just, because I wonder if he's ever going to get a chance to be a part of that kind of character work ever again.
Yeah, you think he's just off on his merry way now?
Yeah, off gallivanting.
Okay, awesome. Next question comes from Brent. Now, I will say, Brent is got a channel called The Middleman, so check it out. He's done a video on Dark. He's done a few other videos. It's really, really good. The video that Brent did on Dark is I'll put a link in the description to his channel, because it isn't the channel of his personal channel that he comments with. It's a different channel. But if there's, in his video about Dark, there's a couple of jokes that just got me laughing out loud. So check it out. It is, it's good fun. There's a particular mention of a particular black hole in relation to Franziska Doppler, which I just, it was so funny the way he delivered his joke there. Anyway, so thanks for the question, Brent. He says, episode 6 question for Konrad. Where does he think the left tunnel, this is one I was alluding to in the main episode actually. Where
Yeah.
does he think the left tunnel leads after the Sycamundus door?
Yeah, that is a really good question. My thought at the moment is it leads to the future.
Okay.
But it could also lead to I guess the center of the labyrinth, like where in my head it leads to some bizarre like workshop where Noah's hanging out and like there's doors to loads of other times that he's able to walk through. But I think my first instinct was that leads to the future, and there is, based on the themes in this show so far about there being kind of a beginning and an end, and they're kind of the same thing, it would feel quite natural for it to have like these kind of binary end and beginnings. You go right to go to the beginning in 1986, and you go left to go to the quote unquote end in 2030, or I guess it'd be, was it 2019? So it'd be 2042, and
52.
50, would be 52. Yeah, it would be 52. Sorry, yeah. And that those are the only two times you can go to. So that's kind of what I'm operating on at the moment.
Okay, cool. You don't think it's like your idea about the room, Noah's room? My head immediately went to like the architect in the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean that's the other theory. Is it could be like an architect kind of room where it's just a bunch of hooded figures and lighting torches and chanting as they walk around a pool of dark matter or something, while Noah sits in a throne. It could, I would be perfectly happy for it to be revealed to be that as well, to be honest.
I'd love if the whole time it was just like this like modern day like sort of /80s time travel show, and then in the last episode it's revealed that it's all these cultists,
Yeah, that would be great. I hope
Egon
there is,
was right the whole time. Satanists.
I'm telling you. So I called it in an earlier episode. At some point, someone is going to cast a spell in Dark, and it's probably going to be Noah who does it, looking at how he likes to dress and how he likes to dress his staff.
His staff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That was also a pun, wizard stuff. Anyway,
Yeah.
Okay. So next question. Thanks, Brent. Next question is from Minerva Minus, or Minerva Minus, I suppose. Do you think Bartos will end up being used for Noah's youth serum, or something? They're going down your rabbit hole here. So
yeah.
This particular commentator isn't confirming anything or denying anything, but they're sort of going with you, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, they're encouraging me to continue my bizarre theories.
Yeah. So do you think that Bartos will end up being used for Noah's youth serum and encounter a different fate due to his smugness? Or that they actually said smuckness, which I take as a joke at us laughing at the schmucks.
Yeah, his schmuckness.
Yeah. So I think that this is based on the idea that Bartos was in the car with Noah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was thinking about this after the previous episode and didn't really get into it in my theories because it was a fairly minor one. But obviously, the fact that Noah has that phone number, I'm gonna start that again actually. So Bartos thinks that Noah is Eric's drug dealer, and we know for a fact that Bartos is just an idiot. Like he might be, after this episode, I'll give him some credit. He's a well-meaning idiot sometimes, but he is still an idiot. So I don't think that Noah was in touch with Eric. I think he just knows that because he has sort of mastery of time, he just knows that Bartos has Eric's phone now. So that's a way of contacting him. And we also know that Eric's cottage drug dealing business was really just him and his father doing it. So, and I don't think his father has had any. I'm trying to remember his father's name now. It's been so long since we've seen him. It's completely gone out of my head.
Whose father?
Eric's dad.
Jürgen.
Jürgen Obendorf, that's it, yeah. But so I don't think either of them had any contact with Noah. So I think Noah is being used to presumably manipulate people in the present. I wonder if he's kind of being positioned as the latest to join the sort of ranks of the hooded figures, because Bartos is just stupid enough to be kind of lulled into accidentally joining a cult, and then it would be an interesting character arc for him to make that mistake, because he's quite cowardly as well,
Mhm.
and then have to basically learn to take responsibility for his actions, as he kind of did in this episode, and have some kind of redemptive arc where, you know, he either brings them down from the inside or otherwise works to help the quote unquote good guys to fight against fight against Noah's cult, or whatever it is they are. So
Mhm.
I don't think he's going to meet the same fate as Eric, because I don't think Noah sees the same thing in Bartos that he saw in Eric. I think Bartos's character is a longer term plan for Noah, and I could see him ending up being one of the hooded figures.
Interesting. Awesome. Okay, next question. Robert Barnt says, what does Konrad make of the logo on Mad's pullover? So it says in German, it says like, now let's do I'll try and pronounce this correctly. Atom Energy 9 Danke, which means nuclear energy. No thanks. What do you take from that?
Well, we know he went missing around about the time that Chernobyl happened, so I'm sure there were lots of T-shirts with those kind of sentiments where people had decided they didn't trust nuclear energy.
Mhm.
So I think from a kind of realism perspective, I'm sure those things existed and were very prevalent in the 80s. But my theory about there being the prima materia existing underneath Vinden or in Winden or around Vinden, and it being manipulated by Noah, and presumably also the nuclear power plant obviously plays into that as well, because if the nuclear power plant is, as I believe it is, a cover for some kind of operation to, I don't know, either mine this prima materia or try to manipulate it to create the philosopher's stone, then they're not to be trusted either.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Robert. Next question. I'm sort of not really adding much here because we do have so many to get through. So I'm sorry if it comes across like I'm just like, okay, let's go. Yep.
Give me enough rope to hang myself. That's all that we require really here.
Yeah. We're all Let's just get him getting things wrong.
Yeah.
So question from Venla. Did Konrad know? Now we sort of answered this already, but we'll go with it. Did Konrad know that the dead kid they found in the first episode was Mads before it was revealed? No.
I'm gonna say no. I didn't. I briefly suspected it and then immediately dismissed it. So yeah, that is 100% something I did not get right.
And I think you immediately dismissed it for the same reason Ulrich did.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think it is very believable. Like, and it's a very interesting way of presenting reveals by basically pointing at something that has been in front of you the whole time, but providing slightly more information, and suddenly it all kind of clicks into place. Yeah, how could it possibly have been Mads? Because, you know, we're in 2019 and he went missing in 1986. What a ridiculous notion.
Exactly. Okay, so the next commenter, last time I tried to pronounce her name, and then she commented on the next video saying that she loves whenever people try and pronounce her name, but she didn't tell me if I was right.
Lucille Lacroix.
That's it. Yeah, Lucille Lacroix. She didn't tell me if it was correct or not. She just said she likes listening to it and presumably laughing. So I'm going to keep going with the incorrect pronunciation then. So she says, if all the pieces are on the board, do you think we're still going to meet new characters? This is gonna be your famous quote, you know.
Yeah, all the pieces are where they should be. By episode 5, I stand by it. It will not be a new character. I'm sure of that. No, Lucille, I am fairly confident that when I said all the pieces were on the board, what I meant was obviously metaphorically the pieces are on the board, but literally there are going to be dozens more pieces that we're yet to meet. No, I think there's so much that we don't understand about what is happening, that at the very least, even if we don't, I'm kind of trying to get a sense of how many more characters they're going to introduce just in this season, really, because I mean, at some point you need to stop introducing characters, because it gets too, well, you don't have to do it. I'm reminded of Game of Thrones with this, where basically it's the thing that was really compelling about Game of Thrones was that it had so many, or at least in the beginning, that it had so many good characters that they'd be, bumping people off left, right, and center, but they'd just be replaced by equally good characters. And Dark is kind of doing that as well, where it's like, here's your cast of characters, and rather than doing what a normal TV show does, where you have your cast of 10 characters, and maybe the season ends with another character being introduced and one being killed. In this, it's just like every new episode is like, here's a new character, here's a new thing, don't worry about it. Like, they're just going to keep on coming, and you just have to keep track of it. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more new characters, and I don't think that I now do not think that all the pieces are on the board. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
There's another board that I haven't seen yet, and they're playing a different game. To continue the metaphor.
Okay. Awesome. So now we have Lord Stannis, which it's a pleasure to be in your presence, Lord Stannis. For what it's worth, you had the rightful claim, I believe.
Yeah, the one true king of Westeros.
Yeah, exactly. Like they weren't Robert's children. Okay. So now that we know that Jonas is in 86 and has spoken to his mother, will he inevitably try to find his father too? How do you see that playing out? Do you think that he'll try to convince Mikkel that he has to remain in 1986, which is an interesting point.
I think that's going to be his next stop. I think he doesn't want to speak to Hannah, clearly, because he had the opportunity to, and he was just like, no, peace, see you later, and walked off. Maybe that's partially due to him being
shocked,
surprised that he actually is in the 80s. But I get the impression that he has an idea in his mind about what he wants to achieve in the 80s, and I think it revolves around speaking to Mikkel, because I still think he has these abandonment issues with his father. Whether he's actually going to get the satisfaction that he wants from it, I don't think he will, because he's not. I think what he hasn't wrapped his head around yet as a character is that even by going back to 1986, he's not going to be talking to his 40 or I guess probably near 50-year-old father. He's going to be talking to 14-year-old Mikkel. And I think that's going to be a conversation they're possibly going to have in the next episode. I think they're probably going to have it fairly soon. And then I think I'm hopeful what is going to happen is those two are going to get together with the stranger, and he's going to kind of shepherd them through their existence in the 80s, or maybe they're just going to leave Mikkel behind and be like, you're stuck here now, dude, you have to stay because Jonas is important, and Jonas and the stranger are going to go off and do their own thing.
Cool. So even if what you say is all nonsense, it does, I agree with you, feel like it is imminent now. The Jonas and Mikkel storyline is coming to a bit of a head at very soon.
What else is Jonas going to do in the 80s? Like, his whole thing up until this point has been this sense of abandonment because his father killed himself. Like, he feels like a man out of time because he doesn't understand why he was just left on his own, and that's the conversation he wants to have with Mikkel. So I think I'd be really surprised if that didn't happen, at least in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so Jamie Jett asks, does Konrad have any predictions for the stranger's motivation and what his plans are? So I think we've touched a little bit about this in the future, but you want to consolidate it into here, that's fine.
Yeah, well, so obviously I think that is Jonas, a grown-up Jonas, and I think they are working against Noah. I think the fact they dress like Noah's disciples is an indication that they, like Bartosz, were perhaps recruited into the Noah's cult and escaped from it or turned on them. And I think that he's now actively working against Noah. So yeah, I think he is the sort of proverbial spanner in Noah's works. Like, he's kind of attempting to disrupt this organization every way that he can think of doing that. And I think at the moment it's him just desperately sending kids back in time to try and get them in the wrong timeline so he can sort of get people on his side.
Awesome. Cool. Next question, Will Duffy. Konrad mentions he believes there are more than one group of people who have some sort of involvement with time travel. What do you think the motives of these groups are? Do you think that they'll be in opposition to one another? So you sort of mentioned that a little bit there, but you could elaborate maybe. and which characters do you think are involved? So obviously you think Noah and the stranger, who you believe is Jonas, are involved.
Yeah.
But so sort of outline more sort of in detail or specifically what you mean about the two sort of groups that you're alluding to sometimes, and what are their actual motives?
So I think Noah's group is the one distinct group, and I suspect they're trying to maintain a status quo. Basically, they want time to keep looping as it is because it's preordained, maybe, or it suits their ends to do that. As to what their ends actually are, I can only really guess at that. But I think they're kind of the maintainers of the current setup where time keeps on looping, and they're achieving that by sacrificing kids. Then you've got the stranger, who is kind of an outsider operating against Noah to try and break the cycle, basically. And he's attempting to recruit Jonas, maybe Mikkel, to his side by showing them what is actually happening, kind of pulling back the curtain, revealing it. I also think the nuclear plant is, I don't think the people who work at the nuclear plant actually know what is going on, but I think they are also trying to leverage the same either prima materia or the same material that Noah is using to time travel and control time. I think the nuclear plant is kind of a government agency that is also trying to do that as well, so they're kind of a third party that exists in this, though how successful they've been, I don't know. I think going back to those barrels buried that Claudia saw, that are all buried underneath the nuclear plant, I wonder if they're kind of harvesting the material and don't really know what to do with it. And that's kind of the level that they've gotten to. But I think Claudia will discover what is going on as the head of the nuclear plant, and will come into contact with Noah and the stranger as a kind of representative of that third group who are dealing with this time travel stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the barrels, because we haven't actually talked about them for a few episodes now.
Yeah.
It's almost as if it's like Eric. It's almost as if the barrels don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, as I said last time, he's yesterday's news. We don't care about Eric anymore.
Yeah, just take those posters down. No one's looking for him. Yeah. Right. Okay. Next question comes from Annalise, and she says, "Hey Konrad, so after you get more background on Regina for this episode, has your mind changed about her? Because she puts here that she remembers correctly, you didn't really like her much initially."
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of her to begin with, because she was very sort of capitalistic and motivated by essentially greed, like wanting a hotel to reopen so that she can make some money. But I think this episode really smartly recontextualizes her sort of snappy behavior, because she's obviously not hard up. She runs a hotel, and at the beginning it's like, okay, the hotel's not doing very well, so that's probably why she's stressed. But then if she's married to Alexander's not poor, and they're clearly not poor. So I'd be surprised if money troubles were actually what were concerning her there, and I suspect it's more just that she has these health concerns going on, which are making her snappy and irritable in everything that she does. Which it doesn't completely excuse her for being the way that she is. It certainly goes some way to explaining it. And she's just a very believable character. Like, she as someone who has known people who have gone through chemo or had cancer scares, it can affect your character in quite significant ways, and it's totally believable, I think, the way that she's behaving. So I'm definitely more positive on her and Alexander's relationship now that I've had a chance to see them a bit more. And conversely, as I said in the main episode, I'm kind of turning on Ulrich and Katerina as we see more about them.
Yeah, awesome. Anna also says, "Cool podcast, by the way." And in my mind, I just want to say, no, I'm Mikkel.
Yeah, nee, ik ben Konrad.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really make sense in that context.
Okay, so then we get last question from Beatrice, and Beatrice says, "Greetings from Brazil." That's great. First listener I've known of from Brazil. That's great. Thank you very much for listening. And there's a few questions here. So first is, Konrad, I know that you have some theories about Alexander. What do you... Yasin is Alexander?
He is Yasin. We've established that.
So what do you think is his goal? After watching this episode, what do you think about his relationship with Regina? So his goal and his relationship.
So his goal, I think that he is. I don't know how much he actually knows about the inner workings of the power plant. I think he knows that they're trying to harvest this material or do something with this material, but I don't think there's been much progress made since the 80s in whatever government agency is trying to experiment and work with this stuff, because if there had been, we would probably know about it, or maybe we wouldn't know about it. Maybe that's why we don't know about it, because they've mastered it and now control time. So I think he's. I think he's just going to be kind of like a middle management guy. Like, he comes across as this sort of like corporate overlord, but he's actually not anywhere near as in control of the things as he appears to be. And when I wonder if he's going to come up against people who really are in control of this, like Noah, and he's just going to come across as completely out of his league. And I think the efforts to humanize his character in this episode will go some way to making that reveal much more, making him much more sympathetic in that reveal, because we won't be like, "Ha, you're an idiot, Alexander. You had this coming." It'll be more like, "Oh no, he's actually quite caring towards Regina, and he's way out of his depth." Which, yeah, I think that's going to be the direction it goes in, just because he doesn't actually seem that menacing. He's obviously obstructed a police investigation, but I wonder if he's obstructed the police investigation because he knows that they have nothing to do with it, rather than because he's actually trying to hide something. But I mean, that could be entirely wrong. Watch this space when in a week's time it's revealed that he's actually like the Machiavellian mastermind behind all of this.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, do you reflect upon his actions towards not letting Ulrich into the plant any differently now that you know that Ulrich used to bully his wife?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Actually, I hadn't really like mentioned that. I think there's personal animosity there, and obviously knowing what we know about Ulrich's character, we know that he's an interesting kind of loose cannon, Ulrich, because he's a loose cannon in the actual realistic sense rather than the sort of cool, dirty Harry sense. Like, he's what a loose cannon cop would actually be like in real life, where he's dangerous and something to be feared rather than someone to cooperate with. It's kind of understandable that Alexander doesn't really want to cooperate with the police, given his relationship with Ulrich. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good recontextualization of the Tiedemann's characters this episode, and it's as you said, like, it feels like every kind of family is getting their own little episode just to give you a glimpse into their lives and flesh them out further, and this was a really good one for them.
Yeah, awesome. And then last question from Beatrice here, which is our last question. Now, I'm going to put the question across as I understand it to be asked, okay? So initially, Beatrice thought from the previous episode 5, like, she was definitely in the camp that it wasn't an actual rape in terms of Katerina and Ulrich. She didn't believe Hannah from the start.
Okay.
And I think, with that, bearing that in mind, do you feel any differently about that, seeing what you've seen in this episode?
I don't really feel differently about it, because I think there's enough of a question mark around Ulrich. Or like, we know that Ulrich has the capacity for violence. We know from the admittedly brief but still present cutaway to Katerina that it like, at the very least, it was like a distressing sexual encounter for her, if not outright rape. And although we know that Hannah possibly reported it maliciously, I think there's still an element of truth to what she said. So it's hard to really know, and I think that the show is being very explicit in not telling you whether it was a rape or not. I think they don't want to give you the answer to that question because they want you to consider what you're being presented. And I think it's not necessarily for us to sort of draw a sort of binary conclusion one way or the other to say yes, he definitely raped Katerina, or no, he definitely didn't. It's more just to sort of collate all of the accusations and all of the behavior that we see against Ulrich into a profile of his character, which is frankly like not looking great at the moment. And I think that's really what they're trying to do here is not like say have us kind of pigeonhole him into this role of this guy is a rapist, but just to say he is not a nice character. And even if what Hannah said isn't explicitly true, there's certainly there's a body of evidence against him that suggests it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and also I would add, in the matter, even if there was no, if it turns out to be that there was absolutely no sort of abuse or sexual abuse at all in that encounter, the fact that the creators of the show left us with the image of Katerina's eye makes us know at least that's how they want us, even for a brief moment, to view Ulrich. Yeah,
definitely. Like they want you to think about it, and yeah, I don't think it's because they want you to sort of start making moral judgments. It's just, as you say, they want to create this image of Ulrich as someone who is, at the very least, potentially capable of these kind of things, just to make you really think about whether you would want this guy as a police officer in your town. Yeah, exactly. All right, thanks, Beatrice. That's us for this week, I think. So we did it. Thank you very much for listening. This one, we tried to keep the main episode a bit shorter. I think we succeeded. And this particular, I think this question episode is going to be the longest one so far because we got so many questions. So if you want to make a comment, actually, by the time this goes out, it'll be too late. So never you worry. Yeah. We record the podcast on a Thursday and this won't be going out till Saturday. So that ship has sailed. Too late. So hopefully you all left some comments. Otherwise, we're panicking at the present when you're listening to this. But I'm sure you did. If you want to listen to us on audio podcast apps, subscribing over there really would help us out. So thank you very much. If you have subscribed, leave us a review. We're not gonna say give us a 5-star review. If you think it's a 1-star show, put 1 star. We don't. Be honest. We're not gonna beg for 5-star reviews, are we, Konrad? Come on, give us a 5-star review. All right, awesome. So until Monday then, when we look at episode 7, it's all hotting up now. Does that one have a German name? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does, but I haven't actually checked. Okay, good. Well, either way, I look forward to pronouncing either more Latin or more German in a week's time. Yeah. Any fluent, any first language Latin speakers out there? Yeah. Let us know how we did. Any Romans in the crowd? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you later. Goodbye. Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the After Dark podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.